Hello folks, Wolf Ninja here bringing you another nerdy video. It is oh wow, it's very early in the morning. I spent all night finishing up Anthem, doing the main campaign story. Now, there's still some side stories that I need to finish, some of them that you really only get started doing when you're near the end of the main story. But regardless, I'm going to talk about the story now. There is going to be some spoilers ahead, so you have been warned. So in minute one, the spoilers will begin. This is a bit of a review, more focused on the story. I'm just going to wait until the 1 minute mark. Okay, so now if you're still watching, you're now entering the area where there's going to be spoilers. I will if there's at any point in the conversation that we deviate away from spoilers, I will put a thumbnail back in and I will re elaborate a warning for where spoilers will re begin if they do. But okay, in terms of the story of Anthem, it is. Sorry, I feel like I'm bleeding. I am. No, no. Weird. But essentially, the story is absolutely bloody amazing in Bioware. Now, God damn it, my eyes. I haven't taken my antihistamines yet. Um, there are points in the story where you don't really feel like you're playing a Bioware game because it's missing, in my opinion, some of the more amazing stuff that Bioware games are more famous for. Um, an example being choice and consequences. Now there are some choices and there are some consequences, but none really that impacts the story, unfortunately. Now, for example, there is one bit of a side story where your choice led to a consequence, and that was near the end of the campaign, you meet this MC called Merle, and he wants to open up a clothing store, and he hires this person, someone he has like a weird relationship with. There are times where they're apparently rivals, but then they're out, like they work together. Either way, it's a very strange relationship. Now he wants to hire his ex rival slash friend to come work for him. Now, because business is going very slowly, he's really relying on your character for advice for some strange reason. Even though, regardless of your dialogue option, your character is a bit like not really involved. Like the guy is reading more into what you're saying than what you are actually saying. So he asks you for your opinion. My character says, I have my character say to him, you have two options. You can either be very supportive in his decision to hire his friend, or you can point out to him that like maybe it's not the best financial move to hire someone when you may don't have much of a steady income. So he decides to fire him. Now he makes the firing very dramatic. Um, so afterwards, the character says the person that he fires says he'll make him pay, and then the next time you speak to Marl or Merle, whatever his name is, it turns out his shop got burnt down, and he believes it was this guy that he fired, and he blames you. Now, see, this leads to some consequence. Um, but the thing is, this is a side story, and these dialogue side stories, or they're not even quests, I would call them. They seem to take more. They pos. Sorry, their outcome of what you said to that NPC can happen later down the line, after you do a quest. So, for example, it took me one mission. I did one mission, came back, and it turns out the guy's shop got burned down. So it's not of a big consequence in terms of how it will impact the main story. Whereas in the main story, there are time I talked about this in my previous review. There's a moment where your cipher, like every lancer is partnered up with cipher. Now, lancers is the general term for people who pilot javelins. There are freelancers, which are people who don't really work for a government. They're very independent. They're essentially mercenaries, but many freelancers tend to help out the fortresses or cities that they tend to be living in. Whereas some lancers sign up with the sentinels, and that seems to be the city guard type of position. They're the ones that are mainly in charge of staying near the walls, making sure that the fortress or city. We have not yet been to a city. I should remind you folks, because the game pretty much revolves around this one region of Bastion, which is the world, and it mainly revolves around what's it called, the Fort Terrace, I believe it's called. If I remember it right, I haven't slept, folks, so I'm a little bit groggy. Um, the Sentinels seem to be mainly focused there, and over time, after about 6 months or 2 years after the events of the tutorial period of the game, your character has been partnered up with, and he's been working very closely with a cipher by the name of Owen, he's very full of himself, but he's also very enthusiastic about your partnership. Like how he like he's the reason why he wants to be out on the field, but he also wants to be out in the field to help you. He wants to be like those type of partners. He wants to be on the ground with you. He wants to watch your back, and his character gets generally hurt when your character is seems to be getting along without him. Like he feels like, oh, maybe he doesn't need me. So he has a bit. His character The character seems to have a bit of an insecurity issue in that line, but he definitely suffers from an overconfidence. But yeah, now through some dialogue options in between missions and in some cases during story quest dialogues, you can really develop your relationship with Owen. And my character was very supportive of Owen. He was very nice to Owen. Like basically, it really grounded the friendship with this character. But then, all those dialogue options pretty much meant nothing. I'm not sure if it would change the cutscene at all, or if it would change the story at all. But my character was very nice. Owen seemed like everything was going well, with the exception that there were moments where Owen was a little bit upset that I didn't ask him to be my like he wouldn't. There are times where you're in this vehicle called Strider, and because you met up with some of your old partners, one of which being a cipher, she took the reins of being the cipher for a couple of your missions, and Owen was pretty much upset. He was like, "Oh, you have your old partners now. I guess you don't need me." And that's when he was being really pushy about, "Oh, maybe I should get my own javelin so I can help you guys out." But your character reminded them occasionally that it took my character 8 years to get to fully learn how to pilot a lancer, sorry, a javelin. So maybe you don't be too impatient. And there are times where I feel like, okay, yeah, but then all of a sudden his character betrays you, and it just feels like all the decisions you make during dialogues with Owen mean nothing, which is very unlike a Bioware game. So I don't know if this was Bioware trying to play more of a let's focus more on the gameplay aspects of the game rather than let's give the player dynamic stories. Now there are, as I said, dynamic stories, and it seems like they're not too big, but the main story itself seems to be very railroady, and structured, regardless of how you nurtured those relationships with certain NPCs. Mind you, though, Owen comes back and he helps you out, gives you a vital piece of equipment that you'll need to complete the story, but he is still very adamant that you and him are going your separate ways now. Your character asks him where he's going to go with the javelin that he stole, and he just simply says, "Maybe I'll head west. Maybe I'll head east. Who knows?" Um, and his character seems very genuinely trying to make amends and say sorry to your character. Like he is very visibly wanting to make things better between your character and him, and then he leaves. I was expecting a last, like a noble sacrifice type of situation near the end of the story. Didn't get it, but it lead. But see, the thing is, Bioware has announced, folks, that Act One is going to continue. We're going to get story elements to the game, all paid for via the microtransactions. So, like, that's where they're going to get their funding, which is why they included microtransactions. See, BioWare's last release, with the exception of Mass Effect Andromeda, is like their last successful game was Star Wars: The Old Republic, and that is an online centric game. So I believe they're taking cues from that, where instead of going off like more of a subscription system to fund their, see, Old Republic is funded both by a special subscription system as well as a loot box system for cosmetics. Now, the loot box in Old Republic can range from €5 to €20, and you will get an entire. You'll. It's not like other loot box where you get like a one piece of clothing. It's you get the entire piece of clothing out. You get an entire outfit, and you get a few other items. Some other items being cosmetics. Like I've gotten two in one loot box. I've gotten two pieces of armor, a weapon, a color crystal, and some special currency that you can spend somewhere else in the game. So I got that out of what would be a €5 loot box. So with anyway, with more in terms of by using shards to get some cosmetics and things, it seems like they're going that route with the game, and I don't mind that. So main point is we're going to get more story, and here's a theory. I feel like one of those story elements is going to tie back into Owen. I strongly believe that. Or there's another NPC that you interact with, the aunt of Dax. Dax is actually royalty. She's a princess, but she also works as a sentinel in the fortress. And her aunt has gone missing in the Emerald Abyss, the Emerald, like this forest type of situation. Now, she comes back, but she's seen glimpses of a possible future. So I feel like she is going to play a huge importance at possibly one of the story arcs that Bioware is going to release. But I definitely feel like we have not seen the last of Owen. Owen is by far my favorite character. Out of the entire Anthem storyline, he's definitely one of the more expressive members, but there are more. Again, I just wish that Bioware gave us more of a actual control over the story. Like it's supposed to be our story, you know. It's the reason why we're just called the freelancer. Our characters don't have a name. We have like a nickname, so it's very similar to that of Dragon Age, Mass Effect, like in how they handled the protagonist. So that's why I feel like it's a little bit more of a betrayal that we didn't get more control over the story when it comes to a Bioware game. Like even in the Old Republic, that is an online game, and we get very little control over the story, but we get enough. You know what I mean? Which is very weird. Like for example, with the sitting quest. Sorry about this, folks. My sister. Help. The review will continue later on.